in terms of what we're going to do, we're just going to have a bit of a, I suppose, an overview as to how the space is looking at the moment and how the space is shaping up and how the space is evolving. If you've got any questions for me after today's session about anything we're going to go through, you can reach me accordingly. If you're on Twitter or Facebook, come and say hello. We're at SMK APAC. So, firstly, this year has been quite a, I suppose, a watershed year globally in terms of media consumption in general. So this year, for the first time, time online globally basically overtook time spent with TV. So obviously TV, as we can see, if we go back to 2012, and obviously even further back, TV's been the dominant marketing medium for the best part of probably 50 years. It had the biggest reach, it had the most time spent with it, and it was also the most engaging moving medium. Well, time online has obviously overtaken TV globally as of this year. So what's interesting, I think, when we look at some of the trends in market, things like content, promotions, targeted advertising, all the things, copyright, all the things David and the team have touched upon, they're going to become much, much bigger issues in the next few years as we allocate more and more budget and more spend across to the web. So one of the most credible research companies in the world for anything to do with digital is eMarketer, who we see down here. I would definitely recommend to you to add eMarketer to your reading list if you want to know anything about digital trends or forecasts, time, dollars, all the rest of it. eMarketer is definitely your best bet. Now, just before I get into these numbers here, your average Australian and probably your average Kiwi as well, combined, they're probably the most digitally advanced people on Earth. So mobile ownership in Australia, particularly smartphones, is about 76 to 78% of Australians. So per capita, smartphone penetration here is probably, if not the highest in the world, it would certainly be in the top 3. As is tablet ownership as well. So can I just get a show of hands if you own a tablet of any description? Does anyone own more than 1? Does anyone own more than 4? I'm sure someone has. If I went through all of your bags, someone's probably got 7 iPads and they're just mortified. They've got so much tech. Oh no, it's so embarrassing. It's not even the most up-to-date operating system. So we've got a very advanced population digitally. So we've got high smartphones, high tablets, and the Internet of Things is going to be especially large in Australia as well. Now, take those factors, take also the fact that we've got very high internet usage, very high social usage, and like I said, your average Australian, your average Kiwi is probably the most digitally sophisticated person in the world per capita. Now, the reason I'm talking about that is this study here from eMarketer looked at the amount of time that adults spend each day with different forms of media. Now, this study was done in the US, but as we just discussed a moment ago, your average Australian is far more digitally sophisticated than your average American is. So that number there would be quite a lot higher if this study was done in Australia. So that number there is going to probably be nudging probably almost 6 hours a day. Now, is anyone planning on using your smartphone less next year? Or is that kind of wishful thinking for everyone as you stand there brushing your teeth with your phone in your other hand? That number's only going one way, and that's up. The next big spike in that number there is going to be when all the cars come online. So at the moment, there's a big bun fight in the automotive industry between the automotive industry, Apple and Google. It's to do with data, privacy, various other fascinating things like that. And essentially, when all the cars come online, that's going to be 1 hour to 2 hours a day where hopefully you're not accessing the internet because you're driving safely and scrabbling with a radio instead. But that will be 2 hours a day where you're actually online. So all of our cars are going to turn into giant iPads. So that number there is only going one way, and that is up. These numbers here, hopefully, if they're lucky, they might sort of plateau, but there's everything to suggest a lot of those numbers might gradually actually start to come down further still. Now, according to eMarketer as well, last year digital ad spending worldwide, which obviously incorporates social media, was worth about $140 billion. Now, according to eMarketer, we're going to see a 10 to 15% increase in digital ad spending worldwide year on year for the next 4 to 5 years. So much so that by 2018, internet advertising will be 50% greater than what it was last year. So things like privacy, geo-targeting, competitions, promotions, targeted advertising, all of these things at the moment, which are a minor headache for us, are going to become an enormous headache for us when we increase our digital spend by about 50%. Now, according to PwC, by 2019, internet advertising will not only be Australia's largest advertising sector, it will be the largest sector before 2019, but by 2019 it will account for about 50% of total spend. So total internet spend by 2019 is going to be about 8.2 billion, and obviously we can see the other figures beneath for those there. Now, what's interesting as well is as money ploughs into the digital space more and more, that causes a number of other strategic shifts. One of which is the rise in, obviously, companies starting to focus more on owned channels as opposed to bought channels. And again, we'll talk about and expand upon that in a second. So I've just pulled out a couple of snippets from this PwC report here. So PwC brings these out every year and they're very, very good. It's the Entertainment and Media Outlook studies. And I've just pulled out a couple of choice quotes from them. But essentially in the next 4 to 5 years in Australia, we're going to see deteriorating spend across all traditional platforms. And the reason for that, according to the boffins at PwC, is why would you pay for untargeted media advertising when you can have targeted media advertising? I don't know. Why do most Australian companies spend all of their money on untargeted media when there's more targeted options available? It doesn't really make any sense. In addition to that, one of the other things that PwC expects as well is that it's increasingly easy these days for companies to own the relationship with the end user direct. So instead of me having to go via a third party, i.e. a publisher, to reach you, I can now build my own following, my own audience, and engage with you directly. So what we're going to see is in the next few years, we're going to see companies investing even more time, money and resources in building their own audiences. But this is great in theory, but in practice it relies on two things which companies generally do quite poorly. The first of those is CRM. So we need CRM done very, very well. If you're not building a bank of data and information on your audience, how can you serve them well? Secondly, when we're talking about serving them, it's all very well to say we want to have a big community and a big following our own, but if you're not doing content marketing well, you will not keep that audience. So one of the really important things that we need to consider is in order for you to own the relationship with the end user, we need to do CRM much better than we currently do. And on top of that as well, we also need to do content marketing much better than we currently do. If I'm a bank and my content marketing is things like 3 things to think about when choosing a current account, that's not content marketing, that's garbage, that's brochure speak. As soon as you put an overt marketing message in a piece of content, it becomes a brochure. As soon as you've put a call to action in, it becomes an advert. So most of what we actually pass off as content marketing is not content marketing. Content marketing has integrity, it has editorial merit. There is no sales message, that's not the point of content marketing. So much of what we see in the marketplace today that people are calling content marketing, and even certain content marketing agencies are calling content marketing, is not content marketing. So content marketing has a lot more to do with editorial than it does with anything else. Now, when we look at the Australian internet landscape, the Australian internet landscape is basically dominated by 2 companies. And that is obviously Google and Facebook. So according to Experian Hitwise, the top 4 websites on a regular basis are pretty much Google, Facebook, YouTube and Google. So let's just call that top 3, shall we? So the top 3 websites every single week in Australia, with very, very rare exceptions, are Google, Facebook and YouTube. So therefore, if your objective next year is to use the internet to reach an average Australian, where do you think you should spend most of your money? Google. That as well, because it's very good. But yeah, in reality, it's going to be Google, Facebook and YouTube, because that's where the Australian internet basically spends most of its time. So one thing which is interesting as well is there's 4 major behaviours that basically are internet marketing for many companies. So that's search, social, video, email. Now, obviously, there's other internet things that we do. We use news sites, we use Google Maps, one of the top apps in the world. But ultimately, the internet experience for many people revolves around search, social, video, and email. Those 4 things are all ultimately reliant on targeted advertising and content marketing. One thing which is important is when we look at the Australian internet landscape, although things like Google and whatnot get lots and lots of traffic, most of the time spent online is actually spent on Facebook. So the average time on site on Facebook in Australia at the moment is actually probably more like 8.5 hours a month. So we've got 14 million Australians on the platform. Most of them spend about 8.5 hours a month on there. That's more time than probably Australians spend on the bottom ones down there combined. I don't know about anyone here, but does anyone ever look at what's using up your battery on your phone? Has anyone ever done that? If you haven't done it recently, I suggest you do it. For most people, the Facebook app takes up between 30 and 55% of their battery, which is a sad and pathetic indictment of all of us, and I'm the worst offender. So one of the things that we need to bear in mind is this 2.5 hours a month that people spend on Facebook and YouTube, that's not necessarily consuming ads. That's chatting to their friends, it's interacting with content, it's watching funny cat videos, it's trolling people like hungry blokes and whatever they're called. So much of what happens in social media obviously revolves around dialogue and content. So therefore, again, if we're interacting with people well and giving a great customer experience, we're going to see good results, and we make great content, we're going to see good results, but otherwise, we're going to absolutely tank. Now, I don't know about anyone, does anyone follow Mark Zuckerberg on Facebook? You should do. He's a very cool, well actually he's not a cool guy at all, he's a massive nerd, but he's a brilliant, brilliant guy. And I think one of the things which I find fascinating is it gives a much better insight into what the company's really about. You know, the papers love a good Facebook bad guy story. Well, you follow Mark Zuckerberg for a few weeks, he's very idealistic. Now, I don't know about anyone here, but this is some of the things on this screen here that Facebook have achieved in the past quarter. Now, SMK had a pretty good quarter, but I must admit, we haven't put any satellites into space, so I don't know, I'm a bit down on myself, but, you know, maybe next quarter. So, despite what you read in the press, Facebook is absolutely killing it, and their share price is reflecting that. They're killing it in every single metric that matters. Of all the money that will be spent on social media advertising this year, which is probably about $25 to $30 billion, Facebook's going to get probably 65 to 75% of that. So Facebook is absolutely devouring everything and everyone in sight. One thing that made me chuckle actually, when Zuckerberg posted this the other day, is this chap down here. I don't know if anyone can read that, but it says, "I have a brilliant idea. Someone from Facebook contact me. How nice would it be if anyone from Facebook ever contacted anyone?" Can I just get a show of hands if you've had trouble getting in touch with Facebook and getting anything done? Yeah, I feel for you. It's a difficult job. Now, when we talk about social media is probably, along with the paleo diet, one of the most overhyped things of the last decade. So when we look at social media today, the dust has very much settled, and social media is really just built around four things, which is content marketing, highly targeted contextualized advertising, customer experience management, and insights and research. That's social media there. There's no more to it, there's no less to it. So as a business or as a brand or as an organization, what you should be thinking about if you want to grade your competency in social media is, firstly, are we doing those four things there? Because that's what it is. Secondly, how well are you doing each of those four things there? And thirdly, what's your plan to do each of those four things there wonderfully in the next 3 to 5 years? So those should be the things that you should be thinking about. Social media is built around those things there. Now, one of the things which is difficult for a lot of us to get our head around, particularly with the content piece of this puzzle, is it's not really just about you. So if I was to basically go and follow most of Australia's top brands, which I do, it's riveting, most of what we see coming out is very much me, buy, aren't we great, aren't we great, aren't we great, aren't we great? The problem is, you're Airwick. And although you feel and believe that strongly about yourself, in my social feed, I've got my friends, my family, people I went to school with who I'm trying to phase out. I've got the Kardashians, I've got Gadens who are brilliant. So when I see a picture of a pack shot of like a fourth thing of toilet paper, yeah, not so much. So there's this cliche that's been doing the rounds for a while, the guest at the party thing, but it's absolutely true. You have to earn the right to be in people's news feeds. You have to earn the right to be in people's lives. And the sad thing is that most of us don't understand that. We feel we have a God-given right to be there because we're Nestle. We have a God-given right to be there because we are SMK. So I think one of the important things is, when you look at organic reach in social media, who here has seen their organic reach tumble on Facebook in the last probably 2.5 years? Yep. If you haven't, you're rare. Because Facebook organic reach at the start of 2013 was about 17% on average. Today, the average is 2.4%. Now, what's fascinating is, as organic reach has dropped for brands, and it's dropped by a lot, brand engagement hasn't really dropped massively. So what that basically means is the people who enjoy your content, who like your content, who care about your content, they're still seeing it. But everyone else, the 98% who don't give a crap, they're not seeing it. Now, I was listening to a talk with Mark Zuckerberg earlier on, because I'm a bit of a fanboy, as you can tell. And Zuckerberg was basically saying that, not every company has diminishing organic reach. In fact, some companies have growing organic reach. The difference between them and probably most of you in this room is those organizations are user-centered in terms of what they do. They build their marketing campaigns around people. They build their ideas and their concepts around your wants, your likes, your needs. So those are user-centric. Now, who's developed a new website or an app in the last probably 12 months? Can I get a show of hands? Yeah, I feel for you. It's a horrible experience, isn't it? Now, one of the things in web design that we all talk about these days is UX, user experience. So we build websites for good UX. We build apps to have a good UX. Your content plan is about you. So what we need to do, we need to take the principles of user-centered design that we use for web development and for apps, and we need to apply them to your content marketing activity. And then that will be you creating content that people actually want. One of the biggest challenges this represents for both brands and agencies is your internal workflows and structures. Your internal workflows and structures, for most of us in this room today, are not appropriate for content marketing. When you look at organizations that do content marketing well, and you look at everybody else, what makes the ones that do it well different is their internal workflows and processes almost function like a news desk. So content should be a process. You either have content marketing processes or you don't have content marketing processes. So this causes a number of obstacles for lots of companies because they're not set up well to produce content in the volumes we need. At the moment, and for the foreseeable future, there's 4 major formats of content. We've got photos, videos, articles, and plain posts. Now, at the moment, most of content marketing is probably photos. But as you move forward, it's going to be ultimately video. So today, the internet is something which we read. But as you move forward, probably to 2018, 2020, the internet's going to be something that you watch. So the web and TV are going to coalesce. So that means the number of videos you're going to have to make on a monthly basis is going to grow exponentially. So yeah, you might share a lot of videos, and again, that potentially exposes you to copyright issues, but you're going to have to start making a lot of your own. Now, this is going to create even more problems because the remuneration models that we have of our agencies on video won't stand up when I need 50 clips a month. When I need 50 clips a month, which are 10 to 15 seconds in length, and my agency wants to charge me 5K a time, it's not going to work. So we're going to need whole new remuneration models to basically power and underpin this move to video, or the whole thing's going to go in-house. So either one or two things are going to happen. As everything moves to video, either clients will either build up internal capacities to make video themselves, in effect becoming a publisher, and then on the agency side, if we don't keep up, we're going to lose all of that work. So I think it's really important to appreciate that every organization now is a publisher. Facebook is telling every company that will listen, if you publish good content, we'll give you visibility. If you don't, we won't. Google's doing the same. So it's not just about social media, it's about search as well. Also, even email marketing. Email marketing is something that we've been doing for so long that we don't even bother to try to do it well. If every email you send as an acquisition message, you can guarantee that your open rates and click-through rates will drop off to almost nil over the long haul. If you intersperse your acquisition messages with content marketing, guess what? They go up again. So content marketing, like we said, isn't just about social. It's about search, it's about video, it's about email, which are the major online behaviors. When we look at the advertising side of things, one thing I think which is really, really, really important to understand, and something that people need to move away from rapidly, is generic mass market campaigns. Internet marketing is much more like direct marketing than anything else. It's about niche, it's not about mass. So when we're running campaigns online, whether it's in search or social, it's about niche. Niche groups searching on particular keywords. If you look for that keyword, I'm going to show you that ad. If you're from this niche member of society, I'm going to show you this creative based upon that. It's not about saying, I'm going to target all of these niches and then show them the same creative. That's bad advertising. The easiest way for you to waste your money on internet advertising is with generic one-size-fits-all campaigns. So there's two ways that you win in internet marketing, and you can do it in basically one of two, which is you can be smart or you can be rich. If you're smart and you are rich, no one's got a hope. If you're not rich and you're not smart, you're toast. So again, it's about niche campaigns, not about mass. It's also about continuous optimization. A good digital marketing strategy is never done. So a good digital marketing strategy is what we say in constant beta. So it's constantly being worked on. So if you ever feel like you can't get ahead in digital, that's a good thing, because it means you're in constant beta. If you haven't updated your digital strategy in 12 months, most of it's already probably obsolete. So it's in constant beta. The other thing as well, which is important, as David touched upon, is the technical advances coming out are mind-blowing. So who here has been using custom audience campaigns on Facebook for a while? If you're not familiar with custom audience campaigns, it's basically where you take your database, your CRM, upload it to Facebook and target only those people. It's amazing. Google, guess what? You could do custom audiences on Google now as well. So about 3 weeks ago, Google launched their own version of custom audiences called tailored groups or something. They just ripped the concept off essentially. So the technical advances coming out from an advertising point of view are absolutely mind-blowing. However, as David and the team have pointed out, with every new advancement, we do inadvertently encroach things like privacy. So constantly keeping on top of those privacy statements, constantly keeping on top of where we could come unstuck, I think is absolutely critical and really, really important. The last thing is to do with customer experience. So the person who's most likely to want to like you on Facebook probably knows you already, and they probably use your service already or have done previously. So if you think about your traditional sales and marketing funnel, the audience most receptive to you are the ones at the bottom of the funnel, or the middle if you're lucky. So with that in mind, one of the important things to bear in mind is we need to obviously collect and collate more and more useful data and meaningful data, obviously upon user groups and audiences. So again, making sure those privacy policies and statements are up to date is really important. Who would have thought that email was the key to everything? I read a brilliant article earlier this year which was called How Email Won the Internet, and it's absolutely true. Email marketing is probably one of the most underappreciated tools that we have at our disposal. Not only does it give an amazing ROI, usually about $40 for every dollar spent if it's an owned list, but on top of that, if I get your email, not only do I have the right to send you emails and hopefully work you through the funnel, but that's how I target you on Facebook now. That's how I target you on Google now. Your email address, in effect, is a unique identifier for you. So one thing which is really, really important is, at least for the time being, the future of smart targeting is about collecting email addresses and connecting mobile numbers. So we need to capture as much data as we can. Now, when I say as much as we can, I mean mainly emails and mobile numbers. You know, where you see data entry forms where someone wants to know every single thing about you, just get the email. Just get the mobile number. That's all you need. So once I've got that, I can communicate with you ongoing, and then, like I said, CRM is at the core of everything. If there's one company that personifies customer experience to the absolute highest level in the world, it's the Dutch flagship carrier, KLM. So KLM is obviously like the Dutch Qantas. If you want to understand more about world-class customer experience, KLM is the one that you should be looking at. If you fly KLM and you interact with them on social, not only do they make $25 million a year from social media. But when you interact with KLM, when you go onto the plane, the airline crews there actually have iPads on board that has everything they know about the person sitting in that seat there. So if you're a Chelsea soccer fan like I am and your season has imploded because your brilliant coach has gone insane, you know, what can happen on the flight is, as we've lost again, one of the crew can come down the flight and say, "Oh, Mr. Fitzgerald, you suck, you lost again." And I can say, "Thanks for ruining my flight." But that's the degree they've gone to with customer experience. So collecting data, using that data intelligently and wisely. The only thing that we need to bear in mind is, as we interact with customers and lapsed customers and all the rest of it more regularly across social platforms, you do need to make sure that we're careful of obviously avoiding fatigue. So fatigue sets in very, very quickly. So if you are running ad campaigns in social, we tend to speak to the same people repeatedly. So that means we need to keep it fresh and innovative, both in terms of content, campaigns, and obviously creative.